Emma stared at her phone screen, frozen for a moment as the notification blinked at her. October 12th, Daniel's birthday. Her chest tightened, a mix of excitement and nervousness flooding her at the same time. She hadn't spoken to Daniel in months, not because of a fight or anger, but because life had quietly drifted them apart, leaving a space neither of them knew how to fill. The memories came fast and unbidden, his easy laugh that could make any stressful day lighter, the way he always noticed the little things about her, the long walks they used to take through the quiet streets of Seattle, talking about dreams, books, and everything in between. She remembered the last time they met, a soft, wordless goodbye in the coffee shop they had always favored, each pretending it was just another day, yet both knowing it was the last moment of closeness for a while. Now, the thought of him on his birthday brought a flood of emotion she wasn't fully prepared to face. Emma had been careful not to reach out since their separation. She told herself it was better to let time do its work, to heal the subtle ache in her heart, to move forward without looking back. Yet, staring at that date, she realized that some feelings didn't follow rules. They lingered quietly, stubbornly, in the corners of the mind and heart. She reached for the small box she had been keeping on her desk, a gift chosen weeks ago with quiet intention, carefully wrapped in soft paper that matched her hopes, soft, gentle, meaningful. Inside, it wasn't expensive or flashy, just thoughtful, something that carried memory and warmth, something that would tell him she still cared without overwhelming him. The decision to send it had been difficult. She questioned herself over and over, should she? Would it be too much, too little, or the wrong thing entirely? What if he didn't want to hear from her, or worse, what if it reminded him of pain instead of comfort? Yet the pull of missing him, of wanting to connect even in a small, safe way, was stronger than her fear. She wrapped it one more time, making sure the bow was just right, as if perfecting the wrapping could somehow perfect the timing, the moment, the emotion itself. Outside, the fall air drifted through her apartment window, carrying with it the smell of rain and leaves turning golden, a quiet reminder of the passage of time, of seasons changing, of moments moving on whether she was ready or not. She imagined Daniel somewhere across the border in Vancouver, perhaps walking home from work, maybe unaware that someone in Seattle was thinking of him at that very moment, remembering the same shared laughter, the same quiet glances, the same moments that felt insignificant then but monumental now in retrospect. Emma thought about the nights she had lain awake, scrolling through old messages, rereading lines that now carried a weight she hadn't noticed before. She remembered the books he had lent her, the music they had shared, the jokes only they found funny, the subtle ways their routines had intertwined until it felt impossible to separate them. And yet, life had separated them. Life had its own plans, and sometimes love, even when genuine and deep, couldn't fight timing, distance, or circumstance. Still, Emma felt that today, of all days, she had the right to reach across that distance in the smallest way she could. The gift on her desk wasn't just a package, it was a bridge, a heartbeat, a gentle reminder that she remembered him, that she cared, that even from afar, she was thinking of him. She picked it up, her fingers brushing the paper, feeling a thrill of anticipation and a twinge of fear at the same time. She thought about the moment it would leave her hands, traveling miles to his door, the uncertainty of what he would feel when he saw it, whether he would smile, pause, or even hesitate before opening it. But she couldn't let fear hold her back anymore. Her heart told her this was worth the risk. As she made her way to the post office, the streets of Seattle blurred past her in a rush of golden leaves and cool air. Every step felt heavier and lighter at once, weighted with memory and hope, anticipation and dread. She kept imagining Daniel opening the package, the small surprise, the thoughtfulness, and how it might make him think of her just as she had been thinking of him all these months. Each scenario played like a tiny film in her mind, his fingers touching the paper, the faint smile forming on his lips, the subtle pause where he reads her note. She had decided on her message the night before, short and simple, yet full of meaning, for the roads you haven't taken yet. Nothing more, nothing less. Enough to remind him, to touch him gently, without pressing, without overwhelming, just a whisper of care, a gesture that said, I still remember you. The thought made her heart flutter, a nervous, sweet rhythm, and she realized how much she had missed this feeling, this connection, the thrill of reaching out and hoping it would be received with warmth rather than indifference. At the counter, as she handed the package to the clerk, she felt a strange mix of relief and fear, a weight lifting even as the unknown ahead settled in her chest. The package was gone from her hands now, floating through the world toward Daniel, carrying her thoughts, her memories, her small heartbeat of hope. Walking back home, the city seemed quieter, more vivid. The wind whispered through the trees, the leaves crunching beneath her shoes, and every sound seemed amplified, echoing the anticipation and longing she felt. That night, she couldn't focus on anything else, her thoughts looping over the same images, Daniel opening the gift, reading the note, feeling something she could only imagine. She knew she couldn't force his feelings, couldn't control the past or the distance, but she also knew that this small act, this simple gesture, was something she could do, something honest, something pure, something that kept the connection alive even across the miles. She lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying the memories of their time together, the laughter, the quiet talks, the gentle moments of understanding, realizing that missing someone didn't mean weakness, and reaching out didn't mean desperation. It meant care, thoughtfulness, and bravery, the bravery to act on feelings that were still alive, still real, still quietly insisting on being acknowledged. As she drifted toward sleep, Emma felt both anxious and hopeful, the rhythm of her heartbeat echoing the rhythm of the days they had shared, the days they had lost, and the days they might still have. She couldn't know what tomorrow would bring, or how Daniel would react, or whether this simple gift would open a door to something new, or simply remind them of what had been. But she knew she had taken the first step, and sometimes that was enough. She whispered softly into the night, as if speaking to him across the miles, "I hope you're happy. I hope this reaches you the way I intend." And with that, she finally let her eyelids fall, dreaming of a future uncertain but filled with the gentle warmth of remembered love and the quiet possibility of something more. Emma remembered the day she had chosen the gift as if it were yesterday, walking through the quiet bookstore tucked into a side street of Seattle, the kind of place Daniel loved with its tall shelves, the faint smell of paper, and the soft, golden light that seemed to make every corner feel like a secret. She had wandered slowly, touching the spines of books, reading titles aloud to herself in whispers, searching for something that felt right, something that carried meaning beyond the surface. Her fingers paused on a small leather-bound journal with a simple compass embossed on the cover. Immediately, her heart recognized it as something Daniel would love. He had always been a seeker, someone who moved through life looking for new paths, new ideas, new adventures, yet he rarely took the time to pause and capture what he felt inside. This journal seemed perfect, a space for him to hold his thoughts, dreams, and the moments that mattered to him, something personal yet open, something quiet yet full of life. She imagined him writing in it, sketching plans for trips, jotting down reflections, perhaps even thoughts he would never share with anyone else. Emma felt a thrill imagining that small compass on the cover reminding him of the direction he was heading, while also hinting that someone far away still thought about him and cared for him deeply. At first, she had hesitated to write anything inside, fearing that words might overwhelm him, that the gesture might be too much, that she might accidentally reopen old emotions he wasn't ready to face. But as the days passed and she held the journal in her hands, the need to say something simple, sincere, and quiet grew stronger. Finally, one sleepless night, she had taken her pen and written just a few words on the first page, "For the roads you haven't taken yet." Short, careful, enough to touch him without pressuring, enough to let him know he had not been forgotten, that someone still held him in thought with warmth and care. When she wrapped the journal in soft paper and tied it with a delicate ribbon, she felt her hands tremble slightly, the small act of preparing it giving her both courage and fear at the same time, as though every fold of the paper carried her heartbeat, every ribbon a silent wish that he would feel the care behind it. Handing it over to the post office clerk later that week, Emma felt a wave of relief, a release of the tension she had carried in her chest for months, but it was mixed with anxiety because she could not know how Daniel would receive it, whether he would open it quickly, hesitate, smile, or even feel the same warmth she had hoped to send. She walked home through the crisp fall air, leaves crunching under her shoes, imagining him somewhere in Vancouver, perhaps returning home from work, perhaps unaware that someone across the miles was thinking of him at that exact moment, remembering the small details of his life and wishing him joy in ways words could barely express. That night, she tried to distract herself by cooking, listening to music, reading, anything to keep her mind from spinning, but her phone sat beside her, face up, a quiet invitation and a source of restless anticipation. She pictured him opening the journal, reading the simple note, and feeling the familiar tug of recognition, the subtle warmth of being understood, and it made her chest tighten with both hope and fear. Would he smile? Would he pause and think of her? Would he allow himself to feel again the connection that had once been effortless between them? She didn't know, and that uncertainty was both thrilling and agonizing. Meanwhile, across the border, Daniel returned home from work to a quiet apartment. His birthday had been small, uneventful, just a cake from a coworker and a few text messages, none of them truly meaningful. He had tried to tell himself that was enough, that birthdays were just dates on a calendar, that happiness didn't have to be loud or shared. Then, by the door, he noticed a small package that had not been there the day before. The return address made his heart skip a beat. Emma. Seeing her name in familiar handwriting made him pause. He almost set the package aside, telling himself to wait, but curiosity and a quiet longing overcame him. Slowly, he opened it. Inside was the journal, neatly wrapped, with the simple compass on the cover that made him smile faintly, remembering her thoughtfulness and the way she always noticed things others ignored. When he opened the first page, he read the short note, "For the roads you haven't taken yet. E." It was brief, understated, yet it carried weight. It reminded him of the bond they had shared, of the way she understood him without needing him to explain everything, of the quiet moments and shared laughter that had once made life feel lighter and more meaningful. Daniel sat back on the couch, holding the journal, a strange mixture of nostalgia, longing, and warmth washing over him. The gift had done what Emma had intended, it had reached across the distance, reminding him that someone cared, that someone still remembered the small details of him, the essence he often tried to hide or dismiss. He felt a pull he had not expected, a gentle tug toward the past, toward her, and toward the unspoken possibilities that had lingered between them for months. Picking up his phone, he hesitated, fingers hovering over the screen, uncertain if he should reply immediately or wait, if he should express the depth of feeling that had stirred inside him or keep it simple, safe, restrained. Across town, Emma's phone buzzed softly, and when she saw his name light up the screen, her heart jumped. "Daniel, I received your gift today. I didn't expect it, but it meant more than I can say. Thank you for remembering me." She read it again, savoring the warmth, the acknowledgement, the hint of emotion behind the carefully chosen words. She typed back, her fingers slightly trembling, "Happy birthday. I just wanted you to know I still wish you well." And just like that, a conversation began, small, tentative, careful, but filled with more meaning than either could express openly. They spoke in measured tones, sharing memories, gentle humor, thoughts on work and life, but beneath every word lay an unspoken current of emotion, a reminder of the connection that had never fully disappeared. Each message carried a quiet tension, a pull, a hope, and a longing, as if the months of distance had only made the feelings sharper, clearer, more poignant. For Emma, the act of giving the gift had been about more than celebrating a birthday. It was about bridging the distance, about taking a step toward vulnerability, about acknowledging that missing someone did not mean weakness and that care could travel even across miles. For Daniel, receiving the gift had opened a door he had thought long closed, reminding him that there were parts of life and love worth cherishing, worth exploring again, and that connection could persist quietly, persistently, even when time and distance seemed to insist otherwise. And in that quiet evening, separated by cities, borders, and routines, they both felt the soft, fluttering excitement of possibility, of reconnection, and of hope, knowing that the smallest gestures sometimes carry the most profound meaning, that a simple gift can be more than an object, it can be a lifeline, a heartbeat, and a gentle reminder that love, even paused, never truly disappears. Daniel sat on his couch staring at the journal Emma had sent, feeling the weight of months, maybe even years, of quiet longing and unspoken emotions pressing gently against his chest. The apartment was quiet, almost too quiet, and the hum of the refrigerator, the faint creak of the building settling, and the distant sounds of the city outside made him feel acutely aware of the emptiness he had carried since they last saw each other. He ran his fingers over the leather cover, over the compass embossed on it, feeling a strange mixture of nostalgia, comfort, and a tiny spark of excitement that he hadn't expected. The note on the first page was simple, yet it resonated in a way that made him pause and reflect. For the roads you haven't taken yet. E. Those words were short, unassuming, yet they carried a depth that made his mind travel back through countless memories, the small moments they had shared, the laughter that had filled quiet rooms, the long conversations about dreams and fears, the way she had understood him without needing to hear everything, the way he had sometimes felt completely seen and known just by her presence. He thought about how life had pulled them apart, not in anger, not in hurt, but simply through the passage of time, through circumstances, through choices that had seemed right at the moment but left an empty space where closeness once lived. Sitting there, he felt the familiar ache of missing her, a quiet longing that had never fully disappeared, only softened into a subtle background feeling that he could almost ignore but never quite shake. And now, with this journal, with this message, that ache had turned into something tangible, something real that demanded attention. He remembered all the little things, the way she used to leave notes in his books, the way she would laugh at jokes only they found funny, the way her eyes sparkled when she was excited about something, how she had a quiet way of making him feel grounded when everything else seemed chaotic. He thought about the nights he had tried to distract himself, the casual conversations with friends, the walks through the city streets, the music, the books, all attempts to fill the emptiness. And how none of it had ever truly worked because what he had with Emma was different, meaningful, irreplaceable, and unmistakably real. He opened the journal carefully, tracing the words with his eyes, imagining her writing them, imagining her thoughts crossing the miles just to reach him. The act of reading that simple note made him realize how much he had carried her in his heart without fully acknowledging it. He picked up his phone, unsure what to say, his fingers hovering over the screen as he debated the right words, the safest approach, the balance between honesty and restraint. Across the miles, Emma sat by her window, phone in hand, waiting with a nervous heartbeat, trying to appear casual but knowing every vibration and every light on the screen might be him, might be the first sign of a response. When the message came, short and careful but warm, Daniel felt a mixture of relief, joy, and anticipation. I received your gift today. I didn't expect it, but it meant more than I can say. Thank you for remembering me. Her simple reply, happy birthday. I just wanted you to know I still wish you well, carried a gentle acknowledgement of her care, her thoughtfulness, and the quiet affection she had never let fade, and it sparked a thread of conversation that felt familiar, safe, and exciting all at once. Their messages unfolded slowly at first, each word deliberate, each pause meaningful, yet every line was filled with subtext, with the lingering sense of a connection that neither had been able to fully forget. They talked about books, music, work, small everyday things, but beneath the surface, every message carried the weight of history, of shared moments, of affection that had never fully disappeared. Daniel found himself smiling at her humor, remembering shared laughter, recalling the tiny ways she had always known him, the empathy and warmth that made him feel understood like few people ever had. Emma felt a flutter of hope and nervous excitement every time he responded, reading and rereading his words, feeling the subtle tone, the pauses, the little hints of emotion she had hoped for, realizing that the gap between them, though real, could be bridged through these small, careful gestures. For Daniel, the journal had become more than just a gift. It was a reminder, a gentle prompt that someone had remembered him deeply, someone cared enough to reach across the miles, and someone had taken the time to understand and reflect that connection in a thoughtful way. He began writing in it, small thoughts, reflections on the day, memories he hadn't voiced, little sketches of plans and ideas he had been pondering, feeling her presence in the quiet act of writing, as though the journal itself were a bridge connecting them across the miles, carrying intention, care, and a soft, persistent heartbeat of affection. Emma, meanwhile, found herself thinking about him more often, imagining his reactions, wondering if he had smiled, if he had paused, if he had felt the same warmth she had hoped to send, and realizing that the gift had opened something beyond simple communication. It had opened the possibility of reconnection, of understanding, of shared emotion that felt both new and familiar. They exchanged messages late into the evening, gentle, tentative, yet full of the tension and thrill of rediscovery, each waiting for the other's response with a quiet anticipation that made the distance feel smaller and the connection feel more alive. Daniel found himself reflecting on the months of separation, the attempts to move forward, the casual distractions, and he understood now that missing her had never been about weakness or loss. It had been about the depth of care and the irreplaceable nature of their bond, about the unique space she held in his life that no one else could fill. Emma felt similarly, recognizing that her longing had never been a burden but a reflection of the meaningful place Daniel held in her heart, that her gesture, simple as it was, had allowed her to reach across the distance with authenticity, honesty, and love that didn't demand anything, only offered care and acknowledgement. In that quiet exchange, something shifted subtly but undeniably. The gift, the note, the messages, they had rekindled a connection, fragile yet real, that neither distance nor time had erased. And while neither of them spoke of the past directly or forced the issue of the future, they both felt it, an undercurrent of possibility, a gentle reminder that even after separation, bonds could remain, hearts could still recognize each other, and hope could quietly bloom in the spaces left by absence. That night, Daniel closed the journal after a long session of writing, setting it beside him, feeling a comfort he hadn't realized he had been missing. Emma set her phone down with a quiet smile, the anticipation and nervousness in her chest slowly softening into warmth and cautious optimism. Neither could predict what would come next, how this renewed connection might evolve, or what decisions they would face in the days ahead, but both understood the significance of this moment, the acknowledgement of memory, of care, of continued presence in each other's lives despite time and distance. In that simple act, in the quiet and careful exchange of thought, they discovered that missing someone could be a bridge rather than a wound, that gestures of attention could awaken long-buried feelings, and that even small actions, like a thoughtful gift and a short message, could reignite a connection that neither distance nor circumstance had been able to erase, creating a foundation of hope, understanding, and quiet excitement for the days to come, and the days that followed the arrival of the journal. Emma and Daniel found themselves drawn into a gentle rhythm of communication that neither had anticipated but both felt necessary, a quiet dance of messages that carried laughter, shared memories, and small discoveries about each other that reminded them of the ease they had once felt together. Every notification from Daniel made Emma's heart skip a beat, and every message she sent was composed with care, a delicate balance between expressing herself honestly and leaving space for him to respond in his own time. Daniel, on his part, felt a warmth settle in his chest each time he read her words, a feeling that had been dormant during months of separation, a gentle reminder of the comfort, understanding, and joy she brought into his life. They spoke of simple things, books they were reading, songs they loved, updates about work and friends, but beneath the surface, every word carried layers of emotion, a subtle current of nostalgia, longing, and a shared history that neither could fully articulate. The journal became more than just a gift, it became a companion, a bridge between cities and time zones, a vessel for Daniel to pour thoughts, sketches, and reflections, knowing that Emma had sent it with care, that she was thinking of him even now. Emma, meanwhile, found herself anticipating these exchanges with a mixture of nervous excitement and deep contentment, realizing that the months of distance had not diminished her affection for him but had instead made her more aware of its significance, of the depth of connection they shared, and of the gentle power of patience, thoughtfulness, and unspoken understanding. In quiet moments, she would sit by her window, phone in hand, imagining him opening the journal, imagining his smile, imagining the subtle shift in his thoughts and feelings as he recognized the care embedded in every detail, and she would feel a mixture of hope and fear, knowing that this was delicate, precious, and entirely uncharted. Daniel, on his end, began to reflect not only on the gift and her note but also on the months they had spent apart, realizing that the attempts to distract himself, to move forward, had never truly replaced the space Emma had held in his life. Writing in the journal, he recorded small thoughts about his day, ideas for work and travel, moments he wanted to remember, and even tiny sketches of things that reminded him of her, as if the journal itself could carry a part of him back to her, a silent conversation of the heart that words over messages could only partially convey. As their messages continued, a subtle pattern emerged, a rhythm that allowed them to reconnect without overwhelming, to share without overstepping, to touch upon emotions that were real but still tender, to acknowledge the past without being trapped by it, and to gently explore the possibility of a future that neither could yet define. One evening, after a long day, Daniel sent a message that made Emma pause and read it several times. "I've been writing in the journal. It feels like you gave me more than a gift. You gave me a reminder." The simplicity of the statement, coupled with its emotional weight, left her breathless. She felt seen, understood, and appreciated, realizing that the distance, the time apart, and the silence had not erased what they had shared but had preserved it, like a quiet ember waiting to glow again. Emma replied with careful thought, asking, "A reminder of what?" and waited with a fluttering heart, knowing that this was a moment that mattered far more than any single word could capture. Daniel's pause before answering only heightened the anticipation, and when he finally typed back, "Of what it feels like to be understood," she closed her eyes and smiled softly, feeling a warmth spread through her chest, a mixture of relief, joy, and the delicate excitement of emotions cautiously reignited. That night, after their brief exchange, Emma set her phone down and leaned against the window, the cool air drifting in and carrying the faint scent of rain and autumn leaves, feeling something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time: hope. Hope that connection could survive distance, time, and uncertainty. Hope that gestures of care could bridge emotional gaps. Hope that the feelings they shared could evolve into something renewed, mature, and meaningful. Daniel, too, placed the journal beside him on the couch and stared at the ceiling, reflecting on the subtle shift that had occurred, realizing that the missing, the longing, and the distance had not weakened his emotions but had made him more aware of their value, more appreciative of the gentle, patient way Emma had reached out, and more open to the possibility of reconnecting in a way that was honest, respectful, and emotionally rich. They continued this quiet back and forth, sometimes exchanging long messages filled with shared thoughts, sometimes brief notes that hinted at deeper emotions, always careful, always considerate, always maintaining the balance between intimacy and space, allowing the connection to deepen naturally without pressure or expectation. In these exchanges, Emma felt a renewed sense of closeness, a recognition that even though months had passed, the bond they shared remained alive, delicate but resilient, waiting for a spark to bring it fully into light. Daniel felt a similar reassurance, an understanding that relationships were not just about presence but about awareness, thoughtfulness, and mutual care, and that the simple act of giving and receiving with intention could rekindle emotions that had been quietly preserved in the heart. Over time, they began to share small dreams again, places they wanted to visit, books they wanted to read, ideas they were curious about, and even though neither spoke explicitly about their past or their potential future together, the subtext was clear: they were exploring a renewed connection, a gentle rediscovery of each other, a soft acknowledgement that their bond was still meaningful, alive, and emotionally significant. As autumn deepened, with the days growing shorter and the nights cooler, Emma and Daniel found themselves looking forward to their messages, finding comfort and excitement in the anticipation, and slowly rebuilding a bridge of understanding, care, and quiet longing that had never truly been destroyed. Each interaction, each thoughtful word, each gentle response reinforced the idea that missing someone didn't always mean loss, that gestures of attention and care could keep love alive across distance and time, and that hope could quietly bloom in spaces left by absence. By the time the week ended, both Emma and Daniel recognized the transformation that had occurred. The gift had done more than arrive on his doorstep. It had reopened a channel of communication, reminded them of shared joy, fostered renewed trust, and created a safe emotional space where they could be themselves again, cautious but eager, familiar but curious. And as they each settled into bed that night, their phones set aside, hearts still fluttering from messages exchanged, they both felt something rare and precious, not certainty about what would come next, not defined plans for the future, but a deep, resonant hope that connection, care, and understanding could survive even months of separation, and that the quiet, thoughtful acts of love could be enough to bring two hearts back to the gentle warmth of each other, ready to explore the possibilities that lay ahead, one careful, heartfelt step at a time.